So cool. So we're almost ready to get started with this session and cover some of the new improvements that we have made to make it easier for you to manage your SAP integration. So thanks for joining. I hope you enjoyed this session. I'll be covering some of the features and improvements that we have done in this patch, and I think it is going to make it a lot easier for you to manage your integration. If you have questions, comments along the way, just put them into the chat. So we have a number of different items that is in this release, which is pretty cool, and I think that always is a lot of fun if you're adding something that makes the life easier for integration developer. So the first thing is we have a Git repository, and in this Git repository, let me just show you my screen and think that makes it a little easier to see what I'm trying to position. So here I'm obviously trying to do a debug and see how something is running. But what I wanted to show you is here we have the Git repository, and that means that each time an iFlow is changed in the figaf tool or in the CPI and the figaf tool will notice it, it will update the documentation. And in this documentation, you will have the following information, which is where it's located, what's the current revision we have, what are the different tickets that has been involved in this, what are the external tickets, so this is Jira ServiceNow, these kind of ideas, what's going on. We have connections that is being used in this, we have the different test cases that we have for this, we have the different flows, configuration, how is this configured across the landscape, and this just makes it a lot easier because you do not need to remember all of these external properties. And then the last part is resources. And this means each time you're updating the repository or each time you're updating iFlow, this will be updated again. So this just makes it a lot easier for you to manage the integration and making sure you have integration that's always up to date. If you want, you can always add flows that will send this to an external site, pipelines, etc. if you want to upload the documentation somewhere else. So that's pretty easy to set up, but we just wanted to have a simple way of creating and updating these scenarios. Questions and comments, then just add them into the chat, then I'll try to cover those as we go along. Cool. The next one is also really a smart feature that I think we have added that makes a lot of processes simpler, and this is about understanding what you have deployed, because I think a lot of customers have the process in place that they will transport some iFlows using Cloud Transport Management, CTS Plus, or file transport, then they will configure it, and then at some point when they want to go live, they will click on deploy. And there can be some problems with you forgetting to do deploy, and therefore you end up with some wrong versions of the iFlow, and you have a discrepancy between what's deployed and what is the design time version. To combat this, we have also added an improvement. And in this improvement, what we can actually see here is that we have the tool here. Here we have a landscape overview, and this is a feature that we have had for some time. And our idea was that you, as an integration expert, would actually understand what is going on in my landscape. What are the different artifacts and flows that we have as a part of this? So this could be that you want to see, okay, we have these scenarios in production, we have a different flow version, and here in the Q&A we have a different one, or in development we have a different one. You can see across all objects, but I think the most important one is where you are switching this on and checking, okay, so what is actually going on between these two versions. And we can see here we have 181, and here we have 72. This is not necessarily bad, but obviously this can be a bit of a challenge to work with such scenarios. And yeah, so we obviously need to understand what is going on with these scenarios. Yeah, so you obviously need to figure out what's going on with these. Then, yeah, we can see here that we have a difference between it, and we can also see in the production environment we have a difference. This is definitely something if that you need to consider whether or not this makes sense and who is responsible for such a scenario. If this is a large discrepancy, you should obviously go and deploy it and investigate it. We also have the CSV report here. Just this is something we've had for quite a while. And the idea here is obviously to give you an understanding about the different landscape you have, what are the versions you have. I guess we need to do something about the CSV version import here, but so it's not ideal anyway. Yes, so that's the idea here. Then the other thing is when you're working with just scenarios and you, for instance, have a test case. So here we have a test case. We can then run it on a landscape. And the idea when we're running a CPI test case, we will switch the iFlow into trace mode. And when it is in trace mode, it's possible for us to see if, and we can send a message in and we can see if anything is different from what it was before. And we have added that as a feature here that you would be able to see right now what is the version that is deployed, and we can actually get the information that, well, you have this version, you have this other version. Are you actually sure that this is the correct test case and what you want to be testing with these scenarios? It would make it a little easier to understand what is going on with these scenarios, because yeah, it is important to understand such scenarios. Where the difference and who can affect these things. So question, comments, put them into the chat and let me hear what you're thinking about these things. So I think this is the main thing about understanding these things. There's a lot of other bug fixes, improvements. We do have a blog post about some of all these features that we have added, and obviously some are really internal. I think the one we have about nested list and being able to perform tests where you have a camel multicast inside of another multicast is a little to the exotic side, where you probably will not have too many of these scenarios in your landscape. But if you run into it, it is pretty easy to fix with the tool. You need to do some manual things for this to work. But anyway, it's a good way to get started and figure out what to do with these things. We also make it easier to check if the versions and if you're connected correctly to the landscape. So when we're connecting to especially the Cloud Foundry and Integration Suite instances, it is a little complicated because, yeah, who has access, what is it, is a bit challenging there. We're using our own identity provider and there can be some different errors that can be difficult to explain and understand. So we just went through all the different errors we could possibly produce and got some errors from this. We have also improved the licensing. So if you have a landscape, it does not, the way we are licensing test cases is the number of iFlows that you're using this for. And what we've added is an improvement that just say, okay, if you have a named iFlow, it is tested or it is just counted once no matter where in the flow you're creating this. And this is obviously important if you have something in production and you want to retest that in development. Be sure your governance is obviously in place, you know what you're going into and what's going on with those scenarios. And yeah, it is obviously, we've added a lot of improvements to the functionality, making sure it becomes a lot easier to manage these things. But overall, well, yeah, it obviously pains me somehow to say that it's not too much, but it is just the part about making sure that the part we have is congruent, that it is possible to support these kind of edge cases that you always will end up with. Being able to transport objects, being able to configure them correctly. These are the scenarios that we're working on, making it easier for you to document the scenarios. So yeah, any other questions, then just put them into the chat or comment sections. I'll try to answer those if we get time. Otherwise, I will also be able to respond after the session. Or you can ping me or go to the FreeGAF site. There's a link here in the description that would allow you to go and start up and see this yourself. It is obviously pretty easy to get started. I think today we also published a blog post. I'll just find that one here. Blogs about how to actually get started with it. So obviously these changes does not really make a lot of sense because yeah, you need to be started somewhere. But we try to make it easy to get started, and there's like, I did a scenario where I connected to just show the blog post, where I connected to a blog post, and it took like, or I started out from scratch, connecting to a CPI system, Cloud Integration Suite, setting up all of these different things, and it was just so much easier to see what was going on with these scenarios. And that's the the benefit here. And so 10 minutes, and then another 20 minutes to create a test case, managing and run it all in one go, making it really simple to get started with the tool. And that's what all of this is about, you getting to actually use these things. And yeah, if you can spend 20 minutes on trying out how you can actually deliver integrations in a better way, it is worth because just the sheer number of developments that you're going to make over the next period of time just makes it really an easy way to get started and figure out how you can deliver these things. So I hope you want to check it out, see what the tool can do, how easy it will enable you to manage your SAP based integration, and obviously it's also support integration suite, migrations, all these other kind of things that you will need to do whenever you're working with your SAP integrations. So thanks for joining, thanks for watching out. Please click like, hit share. Thanks, glad you liked it. Let's see why the comment disappears somehow. Anyway, cool, thanks for joining.